20 years ago, on a quiet afternoon in a small town, a woman walked past the local orphanage with no plan other than to run a few errands. Life had taught her to be careful and practical, but something about that day felt different. As she passed the gates, her eyes caught sight of a small boy sitting alone on the steps. He was no more than 7 or 8, his clothes tattered, and his face marked with the kind of sadness that can make even the hardest heart ache. She stopped for a moment, curious and concerned, noticing the way he hugged his knees to his chest and stared at the ground, as if the world had already taught him to expect nothing but disappointment. The boy did not look up as she approached, but the woman felt a tug in her chest she couldn't ignore. She had always loved children, had always felt a strange connection to their innocence, and seeing him alone and quiet sparked something inside her, a feeling she had not felt in years. She crouched down a few feet away, careful not to startle him, and simply said, "Hello there, what's your name?" The boy flinched at the sound of her voice, but eventually muttered something barely audible, almost as if he were scared that speaking might make the moment end. She smiled softly and kept her distance, trying not to overwhelm him. For a few minutes, she simply watched him, noticing the way he seemed lost in thought, the small tremble in his fingers, and the way his eyes, though shy, held a spark that suggested he had dreams, even if life had been cruel so far. She felt a mix of emotions, sadness, compassion, and a deep curiosity about his story. Who was he? Where were his parents? How had he ended up here, so quiet and alone? The boy's attention gradually shifted from the steps to her presence. It was subtle, a glance, a flicker of interest, but it was enough. She began visiting him regularly, sitting on the same steps, talking gently about small things, what he liked to eat, what games he enjoyed, what stories he remembered from his early childhood. At first, he barely spoke, but over time, he started to respond, slowly letting down the walls he had built around himself. She learned that he had lost his parents at a young age and had been shuffled from one foster home to another, never staying long enough to feel safe. His experiences had made him wary, cautious of anyone who showed too much kindness. But the woman was patient. She didn't rush him, didn't try to force a connection. Instead, she offered small gestures that slowly built trust. A cookie from a nearby bakery, a story she read aloud, a laugh shared over a clumsy joke. These tiny moments, though simple, meant the world to the boy. He had not experienced consistent care before, and the warmth of her presence was something new, something unfamiliar but comforting. Days turned into weeks, and the boy began to anticipate her visits. Sometimes he would come out to see her before she even approached, sitting a little taller, smiling a little more. The woman could see the change, subtle but real, as his eyes gradually shifted from a permanent sadness to a quiet curiosity, a willingness to believe that someone could care about him without expecting anything in return. That shift was everything. She realized that in that small, lonely boy, she saw the chance to make a real difference, not just for him, but for both of them. It wasn't long before she decided to take a bold step. She spoke to the orphanage authorities, asking questions about his background, his health, his education, and whether it would be possible for her to take him into her home. There were hurdles, paperwork, and questions about whether she was prepared for such a responsibility, but she didn't hesitate. She knew that life had given her a rare opportunity, and she was determined to give this boy the stability and love he deserved, something she knew she could provide. When the day finally came to bring him home, the boy was nervous, unsure of what it meant to leave the only place he had ever known. But the woman held his hand, looked into his eyes, and promised him that he would always have a place with her, that he would never have to feel alone again. The boy hesitated, then slowly nodded, trusting her in a way he had never trusted anyone before. That moment, quiet and profound, marked the beginning of a journey that would transform both of their lives forever. From that day forward, their lives intertwined in ways neither of them could have imagined. The woman had entered his life unexpectedly, almost by chance, yet her decision to care, to take him in without hesitation, set the foundation for a bond that would grow stronger with every passing year. And although the boy did not know it at the time, this unexpected meeting on the steps of an orphanage was the first step toward a story of love, gratitude, and life-changing moments that would one day return to surprise her in ways she could never have predicted. Life at first was far from easy for the boy and the woman. Despite the warmth of a new home and the safety she provided, the boy carried years of fear, mistrust, and uncertainty with him. Every sound, every sudden movement, made him jump as if danger was hiding around every corner, and nights were the hardest, filled with nightmares that pulled him back to the lonely orphanage and the painful memories he thought he had buried. The woman understood that healing would not happen overnight. She did not scold him when he reacted with anger or withdrew into silence, nor did she push him to speak about the past before he was ready. Instead, she filled the home with small gestures of care, a plate of warm food waiting for him after school, a blanket carefully tucked around his shoulders in the evening, a gentle smile when he looked unsure or frightened. At first, even these simple things felt strange to the boy. He had been through so many people who promised kindness but left him disappointed, that accepting her care felt foreign, almost suspicious. Sometimes he would refuse to eat, or lash out, or retreat to a quiet corner with his hands over his ears, and the woman never forced him. She simply stayed close, speaking softly, giving him space, letting him know he could trust her without using words. School was another challenge. He struggled to focus on lessons, often forgetting his homework or retreating from classmates who were too loud or playful for him to handle. Some teachers had called him difficult or disconnected, but she never saw him that way. She saw a bright boy trapped in fear, a mind full of potential buried under pain, and she worked tirelessly to help him slowly find his rhythm, staying after school some days to help him with reading and math, and celebrating even the smallest victories with smiles, hugs, and praise. Beyond the practical challenges, the emotional work was even greater. There were days when the boy would cry for no apparent reason, or throw tantrums that left both of them frustrated and exhausted, but through every struggle, the woman never wavered. She reminded herself that love wasn't always easy, that patience was more important than perfection, and that the boy's heart needed time to trust. Gradually, small changes began to appear. The boy started to respond to her presence, sometimes smiling shyly when she spoke to him, sometimes asking questions about her life or sharing small details about his day. Each tiny step forward felt monumental, and she celebrated them quietly, knowing that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. They also developed rituals that helped him feel grounded and safe. A bedtime story became a nightly comfort, sometimes silly, sometimes adventurous, but always read aloud with warmth. On weekends, they would bake together, the boy laughing for the first time in years when he accidentally spilled flour everywhere. These moments created a sense of normalcy, of home, and the boy slowly began to understand that this time, the love was real, steady, and permanent. Yet, despite the progress, setbacks were inevitable. There were moments when old fears returned, when the boy would resist hugs, or refuse to leave his room, or lash out at the woman who only wanted to protect him. But each setback was met with patience, and slowly, he began to learn that mistakes, anger, and fear were not punishable, that they could be shared and healed together. Through these early challenges, something remarkable began to grow, not just trust, but a bond deeper than words could describe. The boy began to understand that he was no longer alone in the world, that someone cared enough to stay, to fight through the difficult moments with him, and to see him as more than his past, more than his pain. By the end of these early months, the boy was still cautious, still carrying the echoes of a difficult childhood, but the first seeds of hope had been planted, seeds of love, security, and belonging, and the woman, watching him slowly emerge from the shadows of fear, realized that this was only the beginning of a journey that would shape both their lives in ways neither could yet imagine. Over time, the boy began to realize that life with the woman was different from anything he had known before. The early days of fear and uncertainty slowly gave way to small moments of comfort, and those moments, repeated day after day, began to form the fragile foundation of trust. He noticed that she never raised her voice in anger, never forced him to do anything he wasn't ready for, and never left him alone when he needed guidance. Their bond did not happen all at once. It grew in quiet, unnoticed ways. Like the gentle curve of a river carving its path through a valley, the boy started to follow her around the house, curious about her routines, asking small questions about the food she cooked or the flowers in her garden. Sometimes he would peek over her shoulder as she cooked, watching carefully and asking questions about why she added this or that. Slowly, he began to mimic her actions, learning not just practical skills, but a sense of normalcy, a feeling that home was a place to belong. Storytime became their favorite ritual. The woman read books aloud every evening, sometimes stories full of adventure and courage, sometimes stories of friendship and kindness. At first, the boy would sit silently, barely paying attention, but over weeks he began to ask questions about the characters, to imagine himself in their shoes, and to laugh at the funny parts. His imagination, once suppressed by fear and trauma, started to bloom again, and with it, the beginnings of joy returned to his eyes. They also spent afternoons exploring the outdoors together. Something as simple as walking through a nearby park or feeding the birds became moments of connection. The woman encouraged him to notice the small wonders around him, the feel of the wind on his face, the sound of leaves rustling, the bright colors of flowers in bloom. These shared experiences helped him understand that the world could be beautiful and safe, and that there were people who cared enough to show him that beauty. Every day, the woman praised him for small accomplishments, finishing homework, trying a new food, or simply speaking up when he wanted something. Her praise was gentle, never exaggerated, but it carried a weight that the boy had never known. For the first time, he realized that his actions could be appreciated, that he was capable, and that someone truly believed in him. The boy also began to share little pieces of himself, secrets and stories from his past that he had never told anyone. The woman listened patiently, never judging, always offering understanding, and slowly, he started to see that he could trust her completely, that her care was unconditional, and that she would not abandon him, no matter what. One afternoon, as they sat together in the kitchen, the boy asked a question that surprised even him. "Do you think I can be good?" he whispered. His voice trembled, revealing the deep insecurity he had carried for years. The woman knelt beside him, took his hand in hers, and said softly, "You are already good, and you are capable of becoming even better. I see your heart, and I promise to help you believe in yourself, just as I believe in you." In that moment, the boy felt a shift inside, a sense of hope, a feeling that he could finally trust not only her, but himself. Through these moments, laughter, small adventures, and gentle guidance, a bond unlike any other was forming, one that could survive setbacks, disappointments, and the lingering shadows of the past. The boy began to feel secure, not because fear had disappeared, but because he knew there was someone who would stay by his side through every struggle, someone who would love him not for what he could do, but simply for who he was. By the end of this period, the boy was not just learning how to live, but how to feel, how to hope, and how to connect. His shy smiles grew more frequent, his laughter more natural, and the shadows of fear that had once defined him began to fade. The woman watched these changes with quiet joy, knowing that every small victory, every shared moment, was building the strong, unbreakable bond that would carry them both through the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. As the years passed, the boy slowly grew into a young teenager, and with adolescence came a whole new set of challenges. Even though he had learned to trust the woman who had taken him in, the teenage years brought confusion, rebellion, and a struggle to find his own identity. He sometimes pushed boundaries, testing the limits of rules and expectations, not out of malice, but out of a deep need to understand who he was and how much freedom he had in the world. School became a battleground of emotions. Some days, he excelled, earning praise from teachers and peers, while on other days, he would withdraw completely, refusing to speak, hiding in the corner of a classroom, or avoiding assignments that felt too difficult. The woman remained patient, guiding him without pressure, offering encouragement instead of punishment. She reminded herself that mistakes and rebellion were natural parts of growing up, especially for someone who had experienced so much instability in early childhood. Friendships also tested him in new ways. Some classmates teased him, sensing his insecurity, and others seemed too confident, overwhelming him with social pressure. At first, he struggled to navigate these relationships, unsure whom to trust, but the woman helped him learn how to interact with kindness and confidence, teaching him that true friends accept who you are, not who you pretend to be. There were moments of tension at home as well. When he refused to follow rules or spoke sharply, the woman sometimes felt frustrated, yet she never let anger dictate her response. Instead, she used these moments as lessons, helping him understand the consequences of choices and the importance of honesty and respect. Slowly, the boy began to internalize these lessons, realizing that discipline was not punishment, but guidance. During this time, the boy also discovered new talents and interests. He threw himself into drawing, storytelling, and music, finding outlets that allowed him to express emotions he could not yet put into words. The woman encouraged these passions, providing materials, attending performances, and celebrating every effort, no matter how small. These creative pursuits became a bridge between them, moments where they could connect without words, sharing laughter, excitement, and pride. Despite the struggles, the boy began to develop a quiet confidence, shaped by years of love and support. He started to take responsibility for his own life, helping around the house, doing his homework diligently, and offering small gestures of kindness to the woman who had never given up on him. Each small step was monumental, a sign that he was slowly transforming from a scared, uncertain child into a thoughtful, capable young man. Yet, adolescence was never easy, and there were setbacks. Nights of frustration, arguments, and self-doubt tested their bond. Sometimes the boy would retreat into silence for days, resisting guidance and pushing away the woman he loved, but through every challenge, she remained patient, reminding him quietly that growth is not linear, that even mistakes are opportunities to learn and become stronger. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, the boy sat silently on the porch, staring at the sky. The woman joined him without a word, handing him a warm drink and sitting close, allowing him to feel safe without forcing conversation. Finally, he spoke softly, "Do you think I'm really going to be okay?" She smiled gently and replied, "You are stronger than you think, and I'll be here to remind you every step of the way. You have everything inside you to grow into someone amazing, and I believe in you." Those words became a lifeline, a quiet reassurance that no matter how turbulent adolescence became, he was not alone. By the end of this stage, the boy had grown in ways he had never imagined, not just in height or appearance, but in character, resilience, and understanding. He had learned to face challenges, to accept guidance, and to trust love, even when life felt uncertain. The woman watched with pride, knowing that the struggles of adolescence, though difficult, were shaping him into a young man ready to face the world with courage, kindness, and a heart full of gratitude. As the boy moved through his teenage years and into young adulthood, the woman's guidance and love began to show results in ways both small and remarkable. He had grown from a shy, cautious child into a young man with determination, curiosity, and a quiet strength. The lessons she had patiently taught him, about responsibility, kindness, perseverance, and self-respect, were now guiding him in making choices for his own future. School became a place where he truly excelled, not because learning came easily, but because he had learned to apply patience, focus, and effort. Slowly, his teachers began to notice his dedication, praising him for both his achievements and his willingness to help classmates who struggled. He found confidence in his abilities, realizing that the woman's faith in him had not been misplaced, and that he could achieve more than he had ever imagined. Outside of academics, he explored his passions with energy and dedication. Music, art, and storytelling became more than hobbies. They became expressions of himself, ways to channel emotions, and even ways to connect with others. The woman supported every interest, attending performances, reading his stories, and encouraging him to take pride in his talents. Her support gave him courage to step beyond his comfort zone, to participate in competitions, exhibitions, and community projects. Graduation was a turning point, a moment filled with pride, joy, and reflection. The woman watched him walk across the stage, his head held high, knowing the long journey they had shared to reach this moment. She remembered the frightened boy on the orphanage steps, the quiet tears, the moments of resistance, and the gradual unfolding of trust and growth, and she felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. With adulthood came the desire for independence, and the young man faced decisions about college, career, and his place in the world. He approached these choices with maturity, often discussing options with the woman, valuing her advice while making his own decisions. She encouraged him to take responsibility for his future, reminding him that independence did not mean leaving love behind, but carrying it forward into the world. The first job he secured was a test of both skill and character. It required discipline, communication, and perseverance, and he approached it with the lessons learned over 20 years of care and guidance. Though challenges arose, he met them with resilience, never forgetting the values instilled in him by the woman who had believed in him when no one else did. Success, however, was not only measured in achievements, but also in the way he treated others. He developed a generosity of spirit, helping colleagues, volunteering in his community, and showing empathy to those who faced struggles similar to what he had experienced, it was clear that the lessons of compassion, patience, and gratitude he had learned at home were now guiding his actions, shaping him into a man who would inspire others. One day, as he returned home after an especially meaningful project at work, he looked at the woman and realized just how much she had influenced his journey. Every accomplishment, every step toward independence, had been shaped by the foundation she had built with patience, love, and unwavering support. He wanted her to know that her sacrifices, her efforts, and her belief in him had not gone unnoticed. This period marked a transformation, a bridge between childhood dependence and adult responsibility. The boy had grown into a man capable of achieving his dreams, managing challenges, and giving back to the world. All the while, he carried the lessons and love of the woman who had taken him in, the one person who had seen his potential before he saw it himself. By the end of this stage, the boy, now a young man, had not only achieved personal milestones, but had developed the confidence, character, and independence to step into the world fully prepared. Yet, amid all this growth, one thing remained constant: the bond with the woman who had started it all, a bond that would continue to shape their lives in ways neither could yet imagine. Years had passed since the boy had become a young man, and life had settled into a rhythm of work, achievements, and responsibilities. Yet, despite his successes, he never forgot the woman who had taken him in when he was lost, alone, and scared. Every lesson she had taught him, every sacrifice she had made, remained etched in his heart, and he often thought about how to repay her for a lifetime of love, care, and guidance. He had planned for this moment quietly, without fanfare, knowing that gestures of true gratitude need not be loud to be meaningful. For months, he had observed her routines, her likes and dislikes, and the small things that brought her joy. He wanted to create a moment that would express everything words could never fully capture, a way to show that her love had shaped his life in the deepest way possible. On a seemingly ordinary day, he invited her to join him for a quiet afternoon at home, claiming he had something to discuss. The woman, unaware of what was coming, sat beside him, as she always did, her heart calm but curious, ready to listen. For a while, they talked about everyday matters, trivial things that often passed unnoticed, and then he paused, a nervous but determined look in his eyes. He handed her a small, carefully wrapped box, and when she opened it, her eyes widened in surprise. Inside were handwritten letters, photographs, and mementos from their years together. Each piece told a story: the first day she took him home, his first drawing, moments of laughter, moments of struggle. Each page radiated love, memory, and acknowledgement, chronicling the journey they had shared and the life she had helped him build. But the surprises did not end there. He then revealed a small key, and with a quiet smile, explained that he had purchased a small home nearby, a place where she could live comfortably, surrounded by everything she loved. He had designed it with her in mind, filling it with her favorite colors, furniture she had admired, and spaces that reminded her of warmth and comfort. Every detail spoke of thoughtfulness, care, and gratitude, a testament to the countless years she had devoted to shaping his life. The woman was overwhelmed, tears filling her eyes as she realized the depth of his love and appreciation. This gesture was more than material, it was a reflection of the bond they shared, a proof that her patience, kindness, and unwavering support had created ripples that extended far beyond her imagination. The boy she had once taken in, the frightened little child on the orphanage steps, had grown into a man who understood the true meaning of love, respect, and gratitude. For the first time, she understood the full impact of her choices, the sacrifices she had made without expectation of reward, and the profound way her actions had shaped a life. In that moment, the woman felt a mix of pride, joy, and humility, knowing that her love had come full circle, returning in a way more beautiful and unexpected than she could have ever dreamed. The young man embraced her gently, whispering words she had never expected to hear. "You believed in me when no one else did, and I want you to know I will carry that love forever. You gave me a home, a heart, and hope, and I want to give you the life you deserve." She held him close, tears streaming down both their faces, feeling the culmination of 2 decades of shared struggle, growth, and unwavering love. That day became a milestone, not just a gift or gesture, but a moment that captured the essence of their journey. The unexpected gesture reminded them both that love, care, and patience can return in ways that are unimaginable, and that the bonds we create through selfless acts of kindness can transform lives in ways beyond measure. By the end of the day, the woman realized that her decision to take in a scared little boy had not only changed his life, but had enriched her own life in ways she could never have anticipated. The love she had given freely had come back multiplied, in a form of gratitude and care that touched her soul, and the bond they shared had become stronger than ever, solidified by an act of kindness that neither time nor circumstance could ever diminish. After the unexpected gesture, life seemed to take on a new, brighter rhythm for both the woman and the young man, yet, beyond the gifts and surprises, there was a deeper, quieter moment waiting for them, a moment of reflection, a moment where the years of shared struggles, triumphs, and love could finally be fully felt and understood. They sat together one evening, the sun casting a warm glow through the windows, filling the room with a sense of calm. The young man brought out a photo album, one he had compiled over many months. Each page captured moments from their life together. The first day he had arrived at her home, his shy attempts at smiling, the drawings he had made, the times she had comforted him during nightmares, and even the small victories at school that once seemed impossible. The woman turned each page slowly, her eyes misting over as memories came flooding back. She remembered the frightened little boy who had clung to her cautiously, the tears, the tantrums, the moments of silence when he had retreated from the world, and she felt an overwhelming sense of pride at the courage and growth he had shown. The photo album was not just pictures, it was a timeline of healing, resilience, and love, a testament to the journey they had shared. The young man spoke softly, "I wanted you to see everything, to know that I remember it all, and that I am who I am because of you." His voice trembled, filled with emotion, and the woman felt her heart swell with a mixture of joy and humility. "All those years you stayed, guided me, and never gave up. It meant more than I can ever say," he continued, "and I hope I can give even a fraction of that back to you now." For the woman, it was a moment of quiet revelation. She realized that every small act of kindness, every gentle word, and every hour of patience had not been wasted. The boy who had once been scared and withdrawn had become a man who carried the lessons of love, empathy, and gratitude in every action. Every challenge they had faced together had shaped not just his life, but hers as well, teaching her resilience, patience, and the profound power of giving without expecting. They talked for hours, recalling moments both joyful and difficult, laughing over small mishaps, sighing at memories of struggles, and sometimes sitting in silence, letting the emotions wash over them. In that quiet space, they both understood the depth of their bond, a bond that went beyond words, beyond biology, and beyond time itself. The young man then took her hand, holding it gently but firmly. "You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You gave me a home, a family, and hope. And I want you to know that I will carry that with me forever." The woman, tears streaming down her face, could only nod, her heart overflowing with love, pride, and an unshakable sense of connection. It was in this moment that the woman realized something profound. The love she had given had come full circle, returning in ways that were more meaningful than any gift or gesture. She had not only raised a child, but had nurtured a soul, shaping a life in ways that rippled outward, affecting not just him, but everyone he would touch in the future. As the evening turned to night, they sat together quietly, neither needing to speak. The room was filled with a shared understanding, a quiet reverence for the journey they had traveled. They both knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but the bond they shared, forged through years of care, patience, and unwavering love, would remain unbroken. In that reflection and reunion, the woman felt the culmination of 20 years of love and dedication. A journey that had begun with a frightened little boy on the steps of an orphanage had grown into a story of hope, resilience, and the extraordinary power of human connection. And in the young man's eyes, she saw not just gratitude, but the reflection of the love and care that had shaped him into the person he had become. That night, they understood fully that family is not just about blood, but about trust, sacrifice, and the willingness to stay, even when it is hard. Their emotional reunion was a celebration of life, of love returned, and of a bond that would last a lifetime, a reminder that true care always leaves its mark, and sometimes, in the most unexpected and beautiful ways, it comes back multiplied. Years of shared struggles, triumphs, laughter, and tears had led them to this moment, a moment where the woman and the young man could finally pause and reflect on the extraordinary journey they had shared, the lessons of love, patience, and kindness that had started on the steps of an orphanage 20 years ago had grown into a story that neither of them could have imagined, and yet, here it was, a living testament to the power of selfless care. The woman often thought back to that first day, when she had crouched near the small boy, offering a simple greeting and a gentle smile. She had no idea then that this single act of kindness would ripple through decades, shaping not only his life, but hers in ways she had never expected. She had acted out of instinct, out of a deep desire to help, never seeking reward or recognition, yet the impact of her decision had been profound, far beyond what she could have envisioned. The young man, now a confident, compassionate, and capable adult, carried that love with him in everything he did. Every success, every act of kindness, every decision he made was touched by the lessons she had taught him. He had learned resilience in the face of challenges, patience with himself and others, and the importance of giving without expecting. But most of all, he had learned the true meaning of gratitude, and how powerful it could be when expressed sincerely and thoughtfully. The gestures of the past, the shared meals, the bedtime stories, the long talks on quiet evenings, had become more than memories. They had become the foundation of his character, the guiding principles that allowed him to navigate the world with integrity and compassion. And in return, he had found a way to honor her, to show that the love and care she had given him had not only shaped his life, but had inspired him to carry that light forward into the lives of others. This story, though deeply personal, carried a universal message. The bond between the woman and the young man reminded anyone who heard it that the smallest acts of kindness can have the greatest impact, that opening one's heart to someone in need, even when it is inconvenient or challenging, can change the course of a life forever, that patience, understanding, and unwavering support can create ripples that extend far beyond what anyone might imagine. In reflecting on their journey, the woman realized that the greatest reward of her life had not been material or even visible in daily achievements, but in the transformation she had witnessed in the boy she had once taken in. The moments of trust, laughter, and connection were priceless, and the gratitude expressed by the young man was a living reminder of the power of love and persistence. For the young man, the lessons were equally profound. He understood that true repayment was not about money, gifts, or recognition, but about living a life that honored the love he had received, about extending care to others in ways that mirrored what he had experienced, and about carrying forward a legacy of generosity, empathy, and compassion. As they looked at each other, both of them felt the weight and beauty of the journey. The woman saw the confident, capable, and kind man he had become, and the young man saw the selfless love and unwavering faith that had shaped him. Neither of them needed words to express what they felt. Their bond, their shared history, and their mutual respect said it all. This lasting message of their story was simple, yet profound. Love given freely, patience shown without expectation, and care offered with sincerity can transform lives. Sometimes, the returns are unexpected, but they are always meaningful, and above all, the bonds we build through compassion, guidance, and understanding can create a ripple effect that lasts for generations, touching lives in ways we may never fully see. As they continued their journey together, the woman and the young man knew that their story was more than a tale of adoption or gratitude. It was a story of life itself, a story that proved that even in a world filled with challenges, hope, love, and the willingness to care deeply for another person could change everything. Their journey was a reminder that kindness never goes unnoticed, and that love, given without limits, always finds its way home.